Welcome to the Woodpreneur podcast, the #1 podcast for the business and marketing side of the lumber, woodworking, hardwood flooring, and sawmill industry. I'm your host, Steve from Acres of Timber. Each week, we feature various wood business owners and entrepreneurs from around the globe. We share their stories, paths, insights so that you can network, learn, and grow your own wood business. Thank you so much for listening. Now enjoy the episode. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. This is your host, Steve. Today's guest is Donny Hinds from Salem Wood Co. Hey, Steve Larzaliere here. Sorry to interrupt this great episode of the Woodpreneur podcast, but I want to let you know that we are just releasing our latest training. And over this training, I go over how I helped generate $200,000 and 300 leads for clients. And during this 45-minute training, we will go over the frameworks, the strategies, and the concepts that you need to scale from 6 figures to 7 figures, or even just get started. These are the building blocks that I've seen help wood, lumber, furniture, millwork companies grow and scale. So I've been hearing it lots of times, like, I just need a training, I need a training, I need a training. So we finally put it together. So wherever you're consuming this, just click the link in the description and you'll be able to access it. How you doing, Donny?
Doing great, Steve. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for hopping on the podcast. Hey, why don't you tell everybody about Salem Wood Co.?
Absolutely. So Salem Wood Co., we're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's just me. I'm a one-man shop. I started the company officially 2 years ago. It was born out of a hobby that was under a different name. And I converted it from a hobby to a business while listening to the Woodpreneur podcast. So we built custom tables and some built-ins, and a lot of things like that.
I remember, I think didn't you join like a personal branding course first? Didn't you? Like, I think I was like,
that's right.
I correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you, like, within the first day or so, like, you posted something and you like made money right away? Like, talk about that process. What happened there?
We're doing the personal branding thing, and I was actually sitting in my living room on my laptop, and you said, "Here, I'm gonna post this quote, and you fill it in with your own personal information, what you're selling, post it on your social media." So I did that immediately, and like within 5 minutes, I sold like a quarter of what I was offering, and then before the night was out, I sold everything, and it was awesome.
And then right after that, you're like, I think I need to work with Steve.
Within a week, I think I signed up. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell where were you at before we started working together? Where was your business at?
It was in a very tiny shop behind my house, like 200 square feet. And I was operating under a different moniker, like I said. And it was just it was kind of a hobby at that point. I was making stuff for some friends and family and just kind of having fun with it. I didn't really see myself as a business owner until maybe a few months before I signed up with you. But this is integral too. As I mentioned, I was listening to the Woodpreneur podcast, and that actually motivated me to do a lot of things, including rebranding and growing and becoming a business owner using the skills that I have.
And I remember I hit you up at night. And just talk about that process. And what did you learn through that process, actually?
That was kind of funny too. So during the personal branding workshop, you mentioned to push sales in the evening because people are tired, it's late at night, and they're more likely to buy something. That's why you like see the things on TV for sale at night, the infomercials and stuff. So I had been to a show. I was a vendor at a winery, and then I got home late that night, and I think you had hit me up about something, and we were going back and forth, and then you sold me on joining the mentorship. And so I bought into it, and I'm glad I did. Then it was like the next day, or maybe even during the same conversation, I was like, uh, that late night selling tactic really works.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, do you mind moving in closer to the phone?
yeah.
Yeah.
How's that?
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. Um, cool. So, talk what was the process of joining the program, and what do you think are the strategies that you got the biggest impact from?
Yep. So the process for joining it was actually quite simple. So once you affirmed that I was going to be joining, a couple of members on your team reached out to me to make sure that we were getting integrated with my website, my social media, um, and then getting me set up with the CRM as well, and making sure that I understood how to use it. Um, and then after that, it was, the biggest part of it, I think for me, is the CRM is great, and having having that tool available to me. But I think the biggest thing actually is the group discussions wherein everybody is involved and you can learn through what other people are going through, open and frank conversations, and frankly, Steve, too, you leading it and just being upfront with what you think is the best advice. So being honest about where you are and where you're going is key, but also not settling for less than what you expect, or maybe thinking too small. Think big and go for it.
Yeah. And what were you like, how is your business transition from the beginning to like where it's at right now? Because I remember you were doing a lot of small stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So I was doing really small stuff, and a lot of boards and a lot of like small home decor items and stuff like that. And now I don't want to take time away to do those because there's just really no profit in that. There's really no, I mean, there is. That's not completely true, but as I said a minute ago, I'm thinking big picture, and so I don't want to make 10 boards where my profit is 5 or 10%. I want to make a table where my profit is 25, 35%, something like that at least.
Yeah, yeah. And where did you start to feel like, oh my God, I can do this, right? Because I remember there might have been like a month or two where I think you like double or tripled your revenue from the month before, or from the time that you first started. Like, do you remember that moment where you started to feel like, oh wow, this could be something?
Yeah, you know, part of what we do with the Woodpreneur, the mentorship is, you continue to push on social media and reach out to people. And, when I start to get a lot of feedback from people saying, this is great, let's talk about this, let's talk about bigger projects. And when people say, I don't mind waiting 6 months for your work, that's a key factor there. When somebody says, yeah, I'll pay you whatever you're asking and I'll wait until you can do it, that tells me that you got something.
And you won, like, talk about that award that you won. That was
Yeah,
really cool. I mean, that was
yeah.
a great design too. But
Thank you.
talk about the award.
So yeah, that was actually that I'm still getting a lot off of that too. So I designed this coffee table, an original table, and it was my first original design. I sketched it up, I made it per my spec, and then a couple months later, my wife sent me this thing from a magazine here in North Carolina. It's called Our State, and it's a really good magazine. It's widely published or widely circulated. And so they have awards every year. It's called Made in North Carolina Awards. And so I submitted my coffee table for their Home and Garden Award, and I won honorable mention. And so that brought about a few things. One, I was featured in their magazine. I also um, I've gotten a lot of good social media off of that. I've actually been asked to remake that table and similar tables to it, from people all over the state. I also was, because of that, I was featured on the local news. They had a 2 minute spot covering my shop and what I do, and that has been really really good for my business. Matter of fact, that in conjunction with the mentorship is probably why I'm where I am right now.
That's incredible. What I mean, talk about the mindset shift and the um I talked to somebody else in the mentorship program and they talked about I feel like I lead from mindset, but then everybody wants to like talk about sales, sales, sales. But do you want to talk about the mindset shift? Because you showed me a text yesterday, and I was like, "Look at you, Donnie." You know what I'm talking about, right? And
Yeah.
we'll talk
Yeah.
about that. But like, I mean, talk about the mindset shift that you've had in the evolution of you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure. So I think one key factor there is I'm in a 1,200 foot shop that, this business pays for. I don't pay for that out of my personal pocket. This business is paying for that. And 2 years ago, I didn't even know if that was even ever going to be a possibility, of growing outside of the shop behind my home. And thankfully it has been. And not only that, it's helped me to continue to grow. But before I moved into here, I realized that, um, as I said earlier, when somebody's willing to pay you, that helps you shift that mindset to this is a real thing. This is not just a hobby anymore. You got something. You need to take a hold of it and push it.
Yeah. So, um, I don't know if you remember this conversation, but I remember you said, you're like, I think the thing holding me back is being in this garage.
Yeah.
And do you remember that
Oh
conversation? And
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, dude, I think you need to, and I don't actually always push for people to doing that, like moving quickly out of the garage. Um, but we remember we came up with a little bit of a plan
Yeah.
about like, but part of it was um, so spouses in relationships. There's not everybody could be so gung ho all the time. There's like
Sure.
I'm a wholehearted believer in like if someone that's in a spouse, everybody needs to be on the same page in order for you to
Yep.
grow.
That's right.
And and oftentimes spouses, if there's one that's more gung ho, the other one's a little bit more reserved, and the one that's reserved wants more certainty and clarity. And so
Yeah.
we had started to build up like a case to build more certainty in your business. And then I hadn't heard from you maybe like a month or so, and then you did it. Like
Yeah.
you got a shop. Like, do you want to talk through that process and like
Yeah.
what was it
Absolutely.
like to get on? Because that was a big sticking point. Do you remember? That
It
was like a
was.
big sticking
Yeah.
point. How did you do it?
Yeah. So I remember that actually really well because I was frustrated in that I not only could I not grow the business per se, but I couldn't grow physically the things that I was building because I was restricted by space, and that was a little frustrating because I didn't want to make 1,000 more cutting boards. I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so my wife, to her credit, she's concerned about our financial well-being, and she didn't want me jumping off into something that I couldn't cover. And I
Yeah.
get that, and I respect that too. And so, when I found a shop initially that I thought might work, she said, "I'm not so sure," and I said, "That's cool." So we moved on,
Yeah.
and I just kept working and growing. And I think she also saw that this was bigger than maybe what she had envisioned it being. Also, I think she maybe thought that it would be a hobby that would make a little bit of money and then it would go away, or just continue to be that. But I think she also latched onto the idea that there's more here and that I'm going to continue to grow it, and that it's going to pay for itself.
So I've got to tell you something. So I just talked to another person, and it was a woodpreneur, and his wife was the one that pushed him to like get the mill, get the kiln,
Oh yeah.
like just keep going, going, going. And I asked her really, because in order for truly successful people to grow, they need the support of the person that they're in a relationship with. Like you
Got to
just
be insane.
every you gotta be in sync, even though potentially all of the decisions are on you. And so one of the things that I feel, and it's even the same with me, is how to create that certainty in your business, right? Because once you have, well, I'm sorry, how do you create that certainty in yourself which will then change the habits and activities that you do that will lead to the results that you desire in your business, right? And so what ends up happening is when you get serious about your business and then you start taking the actions that it takes in order for you to grow in your business, what ends up happening is that you start getting the results, and then your partner, your spouse, your wife, your husband, they start to see it, and then they start to believe it. And so I mean, I'm going to sidebar for a second. So if you're having trouble getting your partner, your life partner, wife's husband, spouse, whatever, on board, wouldn't you say, or wouldn't you agree that they probably need to get more serious about their business? Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to prove it to them before you can prove it to anybody else.
Exactly.
That's
But
right.
then prove it to yourself first, right? Like, because
Yeah.
it's that switch in your head. You're like, because what ends up happening is like, they're like, they don't take you seriously,
Yeah.
and they're scared.
Yeah.
And then when you're like, oh my God, I'm about my, like, dude, when you told me that, I was super proud of you, because I was super duper proud of you, because you took the leap of faith before other people. You know what I mean? It's almost like you were building for the company that you wanted instead of building for the company that you had right now.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So props to you, man, for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's exactly right, man. I recognize that probably a year ago, I was not in position to be able to cover all this with making cutting boards, but I had to get in here to take that next step. And so I'm here, and that next step is happening, and my wife does believe in me. She sees that. Like, I'll give you an example. Today, I woke up at 5 a.m. with a migraine, and I got up and I got my boots on. I took some medicine, and I came to work. And she saw that, and that's what I do every day. So she recognizes that I'm not going to let this fail. This is going to happen. This is happening.
So now that you had the space, you got an award, you got what's that called? You got the news report, like you in your
Yeah.
local news. Like, what have you been working on? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah. So my day to day is very full. So I get here at 5 a.m., a little after 5. I work for a while. I go home. I take a shower. I go to work, my day job, and then I come
Mm-hmm.
back here and I work in the evening until well after dark. I've got a couple of hall trees that I'm working on right now. I've got several tables that are due before Christmas that are coming up. And those are going to be great projects. I've got some built-in shelves, and then I've got a couple of countertops actually that I'll be delivering. I've got a lot of projects lined up.
That's so great. And what's your backlog now? It's about
Backlog right
5 months.
5 months. That's right.
Sick, dude. That's so
Yeah,
sick. That's so sick.
it's exciting.
And
I'll tell you, it's really exciting.
I mean, how do you think? How do you think our mentorship program has helped you?
Oh man, it's helped me tremendously. We've talked about mindset for most of this, and that's the biggest thing. It's helped me with some smaller details, but I'd say the biggest thing is the mindset. I don't know that 100% I believed in myself before joining the mentorship, but clearly, I hope you understand that I do now, and this has taken off.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the talk about the community and the support that you get from
Yeah,
within the program?
community is great. I think I've made a lot of friends that um, I'm glad that we're going through this together. We learn from each other. I actually reached out to one earlier today about something, and she responded it with a quick response, and I was really grateful for that. And so, and they're nationwide too. I mean, every corner of the country is covered by somebody that's here or was in the mentorship. That it's cool to watch their growth and support them in any way that I can, and vice versa.
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned, or not learned, one of the things that I know about you is that not only are you taking these risks and chances, but like part of it is like you started to uh you took out some loans, right?
Yeah, I took one.
Okay.
Yeah, in February, I took one loan, and it was a $10,000 loan to help me get some tool upgrades, get some upfitting in the shop. Took that out in February, and I actually paid that off as of yesterday.
So great.
Yeah.
What's the mindset behind taking out a loan? Like, why did you, what got you up to the point where you felt like you can do that?
Well, for one, I had the backlog that I felt like was going to back that up, and it did, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if I'm moving into a new shop, a lot of tool purchasers say when they buy nice tools, they say buy once, cry once, and so I needed to upgrade some things. I didn't want to buy from a big box store. I needed to really upgrade like my table saw, and so I went and
Mm-hmm.
bought the table saw that's going to last me hopefully for a very long time. And you know, I wanted to be ready to work in this shop when I got moved in, and so I needed some capital to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And it feels good to pay off the loan.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And also too, I mean, there's a lot of pride um in just sort of America.
Yeah,
Just in
that's
terms
right.
of like I pull myself up by my bootstraps. I have no loans. I
Yeah,
have no debt. I paid for this all cash.
that's right.
And what people don't know is that millionaires and gajillionaires, they borrow money all the time.
Yeah,
Like they borrow money all the time in their business. It's just they never use their own money. Why would they use their own money when they could use other people's money and they
that's right.
make money off of other people's money to pay off their loans? Like
Absolutely.
it's you're I think what people get really scared about is like, what if it doesn't work out? But then it goes back to the mindset of, I believe in myself. I have a clear vision for my business. I have a clear plan on how I'm going to get this back. Let's go. Right?
Yeah,
Isn't that the
yeah,
case?
yeah. If you believe it's not going to work, then it probably won't. If you believe it's going to work, then it might.
Yeah, you just got to get to work.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
that's so cool. That's so cool. Talk to me about what's next. Where do you see yourself going?
yeah. So I was actually just thinking today about I'm going to reach out to some people that I know and see if I can find someone that wants to work part time to do some things and some basic stuff. I need to get some help in here. That's going to help me grow some, and
Yeah.
then yeah, we're going to keep grinding.
Um. Yeah. Well, before I'll give you some coaching, but for anybody that's on the fence about working with me, what would you say? Like, there are people that are listening to this,
Yeah,
like, truthfully, there are people that are listening to this that have maybe they've been on the phone with me or in my team, and they've been hemming and hawing, or they've been listening to the podcast for a while, and they're like, but a lot of them are where you were right before you started, and now you have a 5 month backlog. You got your own shop. You've built up a business. You're an award winning furniture designer. Let's
we would
let's
say.
put that out there, right? You have like you're growing this business, right? Like, what would you say to somebody that is on the fence about potentially working with me?
Yeah, I would say that just from my own experience, I was on the fence at once too, at one time. Uh, and if I could go back and talk to me then, I would say should have done it sooner because I probably could be 6 to 9 months ahead of where I am now. Uh, and that's the truth of the matter. We talked about the community that we have. Um, that supports our growth. Not, I mean, literally and physically, it supports our growth. And um, yeah, I don't know much more to add to that other than I just wish I'd done it sooner. And so I highly recommend it.
Cool, very cool. Thank you, man. So, let's talk about things that are your roadblocks right now. Let me give you some help. What do you need help with right now? What's challenging?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an introvert, and so I struggle with probably being on social media as much as I need to. What's the best way for me to probably farm that out? Like, get somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. So I think part of it, well, I think for you to get through that backlog, I would probably get used to the idea of growing your team,
Yeah,
um, and potentially getting somebody that that can help with sanding,
Yeah.
moving, clean up, like just like a shop hand.
Yeah.
And that, you know, while you are at your day job, they could be doing stuff
Sure.
and being productive. That's probably what I would do there. The other thing too is removing yourself from the idea that it's you. So I think many of the audience knows that I used to work in nonprofit, right? And so I've run a nonprofit and I've raised lots of money, and I've you know, come out my ass and come out my face to like ask people for money. Like it's like, hey, could you donate? And so for me, separate yourself from the idea that it's Donny, right? Even though it is Donny that's going out there, that's the award-winning furniture designer, and separate yourself and so almost hide under your company, and just know that you are putting yourself out there for the sake of the company. You're not doing it for yourself. So when I was doing it, I was doing it for my mission. My mission was to help kids. My mission was to, so like, go back to your personal brand, go back to your mission, your vision for your company, and like literally buy into your mission, buy into the fact that that you are growing a business that's going to make an impact on the lives of your customers in your area. And so once you start putting yourself into that mindset, it's like, you know what? It's in your obligation. It is your moral duty to continue to share your work. Right? I think oftentimes we start to play a little bit small when we start to see like, oh man, this is becoming a little bit, I'm exposing myself too much. Oh, this is too much. And you're like, first of all, dude, you're not that important, right? Nobody cares about you. Everybody only cares about themselves, and you're just doing your duty to serve your mission and to serve your company, right? That's one thing. I also had another client. They started to say, hey, you know what? I'm really trying to move away from this personal stuff and potentially go towards, you know, put stuff underneath my company. And I'm like, and I start to myself, so I was like, oh, they're getting a little fearful.
Yeah.
And so, and it's a fear of feeling too exposed, because then there's all this pressure. But just let that go, man. Just let it go. Like the stuff that I see with you and your daughter, like traveling, dude, you do a lot. Like you do a lot. Like you're working, you got this, you got a company that you're building, you're a husband, you're a father, you have enough time to go camping with your daughter. Like you're doing, like you went to DC, like I saw that. Like there's a lot of stuff that you're doing, and people want a story. People want a story behind that. And in fact, I would probably go even deeper. Like you listened to a podcast of me.
Yeah.
And you started telling me a little bit about yourself. Bro, lean into that, because that and this is the thing. It's like when you start to lean into your story even more and realize that when you see me post, especially if those that are friends with me on my Facebook page, I sometimes post for me, because I know that part of my mission and my vision is that if I post, I'm helping somebody. I don't really post for me. I post because I know, even if it gets 1 like, 2 likes, I know that there are silent people that are supporting me. And that's the key part about building a brand and a business, is that you are building something that you're inspiring other people. The work that you're doing is going to be in people's homes for generations. Like, can you imagine, like, in 100 years, somebody's going to have your table in their house? That's wild to think about. That's a vision to obsess over. That's a vision. Like, dude, I'm going to say one last thing. Did you watch the Netflix show Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Did you watch that?
Actually, my wife was watching it last night, but I haven't seen it.
bro, you got to watch that. You should rewatch it with her. Rewatch it with her. It's so good. It's so good. That should be like your little your evening thing, whatever. But anyway, it's the last season. I watched the last episode, and she said something. It's not a spoiler, but she's like, she gets on stage, and it's at her biggest height and whatever, and she's like, I want to be so big and so famous, and she starts listing all these reasons why, and she goes, I want to live a big life, and if you resonate with this, listen, and if you're a listener listening, if you resonate with this, you should be working with me, because I know you, Donny, want to live a big life. You want to make a big impact. You want to help support people. You want to make a difference. And that's what we can do as entrepreneurs. We can make a big difference through our products, through our stories, through our services. And like, bro, that should be enough to be like, you know what? All right, man, I'll make this stupid post.
Yeah.
I'll tell my story, because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for other people.
Yeah.
Like when we get in our head about like, it's because we're getting it because we're not thinking for it. We're thinking in this egocentric mind. In fact, you have way more to share by you sharing your work and your story than keeping it inside. Does that make sense? I hope people resonate with this. And that's the power of this platform, because 30 years ago, the only way anybody ever knew about Donny Hinds from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, was that he had to go in Main Street in downtown.
Yeah.
Now you can build an audience wherever.
Yeah.
There weren't podcasts 30, 40 years ago, right? Yeah. Your story is going to inspire other people. And so you have that same power to do the same. And so like, bro, you want to lean into that. Lean in hard. Make sure that you're the biggest, baddest furniture maker in Winston-Salem. Make that your mission by the end of it. Like triple your, triple your following. Get big. Go friggin' ham. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool, man. Awesome. Dude, it's always great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, you too, Steve. Always.
Awesome. So tell everybody, what's your website? What's your Instagram?
Yeah, so website and Instagram are both the same thing. It's salemwood.co.
Awesome. Dude, thank you so much for being part of the program. Thanks for entrusting. I'm super proud of you, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah.